What's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the Vicktory Life Legacy Spotlight. Once again, I have another great guest in the building. This has been a long time coming. We've been trying to get this going, but I have in today Virginia Tech Sports Hall of Fame legend, female basketball player, Jen Root Price. Jenny Root Price, how you doing?
I'm good, Dwight, doing good. Glad to finally be here. Yeah, this has been a hot mess express trying to get this going, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has, man. But this has been a long time coming, but also it's been worth the wait, man. You and your family have been through a lot of great moments here recently, and we're going to talk about those great moments that you had at Tech because I know a lot of your friends and supporters want to hear about that, and also talk about what it's been like to return back home. But I want to start off, Jen. I want to talk about when I have guests on, we talk about like what they accomplished, and we're gonna get into all of that, their awards, their accolades, also some of their disappointments and frustrations. But I always think it's good to start out with the foundation. You are not a Virginian like me. You are from Florida, and
Right.
you got all the way to Blacksburg. So let's talk about growing up in Florida, your childhood, what it was like growing up down there in Florida, and also who influenced you and got you into sports.
We froze up. You still there? It kind of froze up completely.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna start
Okay.
that over. Don't worry about it. I'll do it again.
Okay.
I can edit that. So
Okay.
Jen, I want to ask you this. Obviously you're back in Blacksburg. It's been,
Mhm.
I think JC said it was 17 years for you guys to get back. But you
Yeah.
grew up in Florida,
Yeah.
and I'm not from Florida. My mom is from Florida. I've been in Jacksonville where she's from, but I want you to talk about the foundation, like where you from and your
Okay.
family life and what it was like growing up in Florida and who influenced you and got you into sports.
Okay. Well, I actually lived in Blacksburg in second and third grade. I actually went to Gilbert Linkus. My dad was an engineer at Celanese out in NARS, and I have to say it the right way. And my parents divorced. So that's what got me down to Pensacola. My mom and my two brothers and I moved down to my grandparents' house my mom had just inherited. So that's how I wound up in Pensacola. And then I came whenever I visited my dad in the summertime, I would go to basketball camp at Tech. So I would come and spend a week up here and go to camp and then just get, obviously do the basketball thing while I was here. But as far as the most, I'd say growing up in Pensacola, and it's crazy because, we lived on the water and it had a nice house and mom did everything, for us. But one of the biggest things she did, we went to a little tiny Catholic school right down the street. So not even Catholic, but fourth, fifth, and sixth grade, I was at a Catholic school and they had outdoor basketball courts out there. There were six of them. And there were some people that were starting to come and play basketball in the evenings after our practices that were, making a mess, leaving trash, drug paraphernalia, whatnot was being
Mm.
left around. And so they were going to disband our sports teams because they thought, well, if their baskets aren't there, then they can't be hanging out, after hours. So my mom literally every day would go out there and take the rims off of all six hoops. She had a conversion van and she would climb up on the back of the ladder and she'd use the tools and get the rims down. And then, go home, leave in the back of the van. And the next day when it was time for practice, she'd be back out there an hour beforehand, putting the rims back up so that the boys and girls teams there, the juniors and midgets, I think is what we were called then.
Midgets,
All,
midgets.
yeah, the juniors were the older ones, midgets were the younger ones. Clearly not size related, but but yeah, mom went in order for us to be able to play. She went out there every day and took rims down and put them back up. And she wanted every kid at that school to have a chance to play sports. So that was pretty cool. And that's funny to think that you start out with outdoor basketball courts. You're out there on the asphalt and, just not even a wooden floor, not even indoor. That's where it all started for me was at old St. Thomas More Catholic school there in Pensacola.
So when that all started to happen, I like to ask this question to a lot of my guests. When did it click for you that this is something you can see yourself doing even more? I mean, because now, just before you answer that, now we have it where, I know your daughters are athletes, my children are athletes. Now, with social media and the expectation is, okay, I'm going to do
Mhm.
A, B, and C. They're more aware. They not so much that we weren't goal oriented, but
Mhm.
there's an expectation by a lot of parents, a lot of kids that I do this, I get this much money, I can go here, have
Mhm.
this and this many
Mhm.
followers. When did it click for you that like this is something I really enjoy doing? I really want to play. I'm
Right.
actually pretty good at this.
I would say probably not until seventh or eighth grade, because I mean, I was tall, but I hadn't really grown. I mean, I'm, just shy of 6'3". So I was probably maybe 5'9". And of course, that's tall, but I'm like, yeah, not so much. And I wasn't good. I had my mom had a picture one day with the little tiny shorts on, and I had tube socks and low tops. And I had wristband. I mean, dude, I was a specimen. I had a mullet, I mean, God, it was awful. So looking back at that, I'm like, God, that was a treat to see that. But sometime in middle school, when I grew and was, pushing just a little bit over 6 feet, still going. And I never lost my coordination. So, for whatever reason, I didn't get all gangly and unable to get down the court. I was always coordinated, and basketball just started making sense. And I remember mom said there was a dad in the stands one day in a middle school game and just said, "Does you realize how special it is that your daughter just sees the game? Like it made sense." And he was like, "She sees it. She knows what's going to happen before it happens." And I'm like, sometimes, yes, but it started being in slow motion. It felt like for me, like everybody else was going, slower, and I could do things, and it just started clicking. And then, I had an unbelievably soft shooting touch, which is just something you're either born with or not born with. And I was lucky enough to have it. So
No doubt. Was it a situation in which other coaches saw it too? Because when you start to reach your potential and the light bulb goes off, it starts to click. Was there any
mhm.
feedback given to you during the season or when you started to kind of come together during that time period?
A little bit. I mean, a lot of this was mostly, volunteer parents coaching at the schools and stuff. But then there was at the Catholic high school there in Pensacola, there was a little tiny diminutive woman named Virginia Holland who was not even 5 feet tall. I mean, but knew the game, and she had coached several state championship teams there at the school, and she reached out. My brothers were already at Pensacola Catholic, and so she reached out and said they were going to have their springtime. This is my eighth grade year, so springtime and then summer workouts, and she wanted me to come and be a part of it. And so I was like, "Oh, awesome, great!" So I spent every waking moment in my backyard. JC and I laugh all the time. I had like a 50-foot long extension cord, and I plugged my boom box in, and had the kids these days don't know the pressure, and getting the music out there and stuff to be able to, and just would shoot and shoot and shoot, for hours. And at the time it was a two-handed shot, and nobody had ever corrected it because, everything was fine. So I spent all this time preparing to go to the high school practices. And the first day I walk in, Coach Holland looks at me and she grabbed one of the seniors and like, "Get her over there and fix that." And so for the first week, I literally form shot for 2 hours at practice. I would condition with the team and be able to shoot layups and all that. But as soon as they started doing stuff, my butt was over to side basket, just working on one-handed shooting. And, it took me probably the first week, and working on it at home on my own time. But then once it clicked, then, she told my mom and I both that she wanted me on the varsity team. She guaranteed zero practice or zero playing time, excuse me, but felt that she could mold me better if I was, under her tutelage. And I was like, "Okay, we're in. Let's, she's already fixed one major thing, within 5 minutes of seeing me walk in the building. So, she was fantastic. And it was just funny because she was so little, but by God, she had a presence and she commanded respect from everybody out there, and, knew the game and coached it with passion. And I'd say it was probably one of my first influences, besides my mom, with my game. So.
Love it. Let me ask you this, Jenny. A lot of people, even back then or even now, you'll say, "Hey, when this person played, I had to make sure I watched him or her play," or "This
Mhm,
was always my team." Um,
mhm,
Obviously, again, the here and now. Now you got social media, you got Ball is Life, you got all these different channels and IG accounts. But for you, was there a go-to male or female player or a team that you wanted to watch where as you start to ascending as a player, did
Mhm.
you say, okay, I like to watch this person. I want to model my game after him or her, or I like this team because of
Mhm.
the way they play. Who or who would that for you?
It's cliche, but it was Pat Summitt in Tennessee. The Lady Vols were, at the time, that was when they were battling Louisiana Tech, and the national titles everywhere and Final Four. And, I was fortunate enough that there were some Final Fours down south. I think New Orleans had one when I was in high school and somewhere else. But my mom would take us. She would just load us up and let's go watch them play in action and see, watch the coaches, see how they coach when you're in the building and see how the players respond. And, Pat Summitt was just, Lord, that woman intimidated the heck out of me. I mean, so many stories about her, but gosh, she was something. She was special. And yeah, I definitely wanted to watch her, watch how she coached, watch how her players responded to her. And just, she was just good. And she just got every ounce of talent out of all of her players.
Love Pat Summitt
Yeah.
even now. She
Yeah.
was one of the best coaches of all time, men and women. I don't even
Yes.
like to
100%.
specify. She was
Yeah.
just amazing.
Yeah.
And she to me did a lot for college basketball.
Yes.
She was a great coach. So
Yeah.
back to your high school career.
Mhm.
So as you're playing, take me back there. Are there some games? Is there a night? I always ask my guests this.
Uh,
When you look at your career, and I know we're older now, we're in a place where we have different responsibilities, but take a few minutes right now and take me back to a game or a season where as a kid say you were in your bag, where you were like, you know what? It was this season or it was this night, I felt like I couldn't be stopped, or this is when it all kind of came together.
right.
Is there a night or a season that happened?
I'd say so. I started out, so little brief history on that. I started out at Pensacola Catholic for 2 years.
Hmm.
And after my freshman year, Coach Holland wound up taking a job at a public school. And so I stayed at Catholic one more year and then kind of realized that if I wanted to go big time, I needed to go to a big time school. So I went from this tiny 1A Catholic high school I had 65 people in my class, and I transferred over across town to Washington High School, which had, Lord, 650. I mean, it was just, we were a huge 6A Florida school, um,
Mm.
and played for Coach Ronnie Bond, who, again, he is another person that just every time I'd come back in town, that's who I would go see. And he was brutal truth when it came to, you want to know how to get better? I had only played zone defense at Catholic, and Coach Bond in Washington, full court, man to man, all game, every game. That's what you do. And, it was eye opening for me. And we had, again, the summer practices. And so my first aha moment was we're there and it's about probably 2.5, 3 hour practice. And then all of the former players that he had that are playing in college would come back and scrimmage against us. And not just women's, we had Roy Jones Jr. went to that high school. He came and scrimmaged against us
Wow.
sometimes just to, and he would, God, he could play too, but he would just kind of like, mess. He was there getting in shape. And all of a sudden Coach Baum was like, go ahead, let loose. And he would just start, balling. And we're all just like, dude, that guy is a freakish athlete. But anyway, my first week there, it was just, I was so sore and so out of my league and so unsure. And I thought I was being punished when you were on the blue team, and that wound up being the starters. I thought he's like, he's trying to get you back in shape. You're not, so I move in and I'm with the starting team, and I am playing defense against Dee Dee Davis, who is 6'4", 6'5". She played at Alabama, and a
Wow.
phenomenal player. And I got her butt seemed like it came up to my chest, and so she's letting me guard her, and I'm getting confidence and I'm fronting and I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And she's like, all right, she goes, I'm gonna post up for real this time. I was like, all right, I'm ready. I'm like, thinking I can do this. She comes down and she like forearms me and then opens up. And when she opens up, just cracked me straight in the nose with her elbow and knocks me down, breaks my nose,
Yeah.
doesn't
Wow.
bother, catches the ball, goes up and scores before she turns around to make sure. She's like, I told you I was going to post. and that was all and I'm like, and I'm sitting there just like holding my face and, God, I had two black eyes. My nose was like off to the side. It was so bad.
What year was it? What grade was this for you?
That was my junior year. That was my junior year. Yeah. Uh-huh. So yeah, it was summer between sophomore and junior year. So that, and you come back, they took me to a doctor and then they popped it back in place. And I was at practice the next day, two
You
black
ain't sit
eyes.
out? You ain't sit out?
No, you're not going to miss that. I mean, I was like trying to protect my face and then, we didn't do that. We didn't have the mask. You just like
Mask
sucked
and
it up,
stuff.
took a bunch of Advil and prayed that somebody didn't pop you in the face again. So,
No doubt.
so that was my first of, okay, you think you're good, but you're not. And you better start busting your butt a little bit more, because just one time of an SEC player posting up and she threw you across the floor like a rag doll. And then another one I would say, oh gosh, I don't remember. The team was from, it was Quincy Shanks. They were from just outside of Tallahassee and they came in and played. And just literally I go up for a shot and just get chucked by somebody on the ground. And of all things, the girl leans over top and is like, let's see what you got, cracker. And I'm kind of sitting there for a second and I was like, oh, okay. I was one of those players. I'm like, I just did my own thing, but once I get fired up, I'm fired up. Mm-hmm. So she says that, and I kind of looked for a second and I was like, okay, all right, here we go. And I don't know, I dropped 30 something, 40 on him. I couldn't miss. It was one of those games where I was I'm like, and finally after the game, I was like, not bad for cracker, was it? I probably shouldn't have said that, but I was like, nothing much they could say. It was supposed to be this big showdown and we whooped them. And I had, like I said, a ton of points that game. So
that's what's up, man. Hearing you talk about breaking your nose and coming back is crazy because I'm not one of these guys that calls these new kids soft. I don't think that's the truth. I think you had soft kids when I played. I think it's one of those things where some kids are built different and some kids aren't. I will say though, you're a lot tougher than me. I've never broken my nose. I don't know if I could. I don't know if I would have came back. I mean, and then you like to come back and want some more. And by the way, Roy Jones, he used to hoop before some of his boxing matches. So you were right. You guys called it before the world saw it because he still remains
just
one of
so
the best
fast
boxers and athletes of all time. That's crazy. You talked about your coaches. Just for a second, just elaborate a little bit more about what they taught you on and off the court, because now, you're a parent, you have daughters who are athletes, your husband is a phenomenal coach and was a phenomenal player, but just give a little bit more insight into what they taught you, because I think we hear that and okay, obviously it worked. You became a Hall of Fame player for Virginia Tech women's basketball, but at the same time, you and I both know there's more to it. Were there conversations? Were there things they told you to do? Read books? Was it they challenged you? Was it accountability? Just speak a little bit more about that.
Kind of a little bit of definitely challenged, and made you realize that you might think you've done everything you can do, but there's more. You can push a little harder. You can do something. You can go run track and do other things besides just basketball that will help you in the long run. I think they taught me a lot of humility in that, you gotta give more of yourself. It's not just sports. So it's, if your family's more well off than another family, then, you can help out. We can, have Christmas parties, you can host dinners, you can do different things, and it's all a team. There's no one person greater than the, the best player and the worst player. You're all still on the team. And the only way you're going to be successful is if you're all together and you all see each other in the same light. And I think some of my coaches definitely taught me that, of just see the person and get to know the person. And, it's not necessarily, you might not choose, your teammates, but once you're on the team and you get to know them, then it's like, man, I would have, it's my best friends ever. And it's probably somebody I wouldn't have known if it wasn't from sports. We didn't do, it's funny, back in the day, and, we had the VHS tapes. And the coaches would write down whatever timestamp, and they would be fast forwarding, or they would, make a clip, together of stuff. And so we didn't get to watch a ton of film as much as they do nowadays. But the little bit we would watch, it was in college especially, but just pointing out just such minute little details that you might not have thought. If you were 3 feet over on this, you make this play, you do this and this. If you do a bounce pass here instead of a chest pass, we can go, here's the sequence that would have happened. So from that standpoint, it was learning a lot and more little small details of the game that you think don't matter. But then once you get those and you realize it and you start seeing more and more, you're like, okay, I got it. And then you can just, build on that.
No
So,
doubt. No, I agree. And I asked that only because I think, when you played, as I get older, I realized, man, I was so blessed to play for some phenomenal men and women, like coaches, people that
yeah.
taught me so much. And as I become older, I start to realize how even 25, 30 years later, I'm still using a lot of those same principles.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
I want to
Mhm.
touch on that. So Jenny, when it comes to recruiting, okay,
Mhm.
you're playing for this great coach. You're dealing with people challenging you, calling you names, but at the same time, you're fighting through it. You're growing into a player.
Mhm.
Recruiting is so much different compared to when you and I played sports. Now there's watch lists, there's rankings, there's all these different things. Obviously, ESPN and other media outlets cover high school men and women's sports, so you can get a lot more exposure. It
Mhm.
was different back then. How in the world, even though you had lived in Blacksburg and then you moved down to Florida, how did Virginia
Mhm.
Tech and find out about you? And were there some other schools recruiting you? How did recruiting work for you? Was it a lot of offers? Was it just a couple? How did that come about?
There was a lot. So the biggest thing back in our day, they had Blue Star and Blue Chip basketball camps. And those were all over the South. And it was basically you show up, you get a jersey with a giant number on the back, and you go play. And you get put on a team, and it's pretty much 8 hours a day of you're scrimmaging against other, Division I want to be talent. And then doing some station work with different coaches. And then literally you'd be in the arena and there's hundreds of college coaches just watching you play. So that my mom started sending me to those. And so that got some of the ball rolling. And obviously my high school coach knew tons of teams. He had sent players all over the place. Biggest thing for me was I got recruited by everybody. All the SEC schools wanted me to be a 3. And, Lord, I couldn't handle the ball. I'm a lefty. And, I got a story about using my right hand. I'll tell you later. But, I wasn't comfortable. I wasn't a 3-point threat. And so when the SEC was calling and they're like, yeah, you would love to come down, but you'll be a 3 for us. And I didn't have the confidence that I could do it. I did as a post player. So I had my final 3 were Tech, Clemson, and Tulane. Texas A&M was
Oh,
one of them as well. So, but recruiting was crazy because it was, they just called all the time. And my mom had gotten this book, all the colleges in America. And random university would call and I'd be like, well, do you have engineering? Oh yeah, we do. And I would look them up in the book and it's like, no, you don't. We can work that out. And I'm like, well, my degree is important to me. And I was really, really strong in math and science. And so my dad had pushed us all, if you start out in engineering, you can always transfer out, just use your what you're passionate about. I'm like, yeah, I do like math and science a lot. So that was one of my weed out factors with some schools, was just checking in. Do you have an engineering department? What type of engineering do you have? And then looking into, where do you see me fitting in your team? What position would I be playing? What talent do you have there now? Am I going to be sitting for several years before I even get a look, or, how's it going to go? So.
so with Tech,
Mhm.
what was the decision? What was your visit like? Because again, you're a few years ahead of me, but when I got to Tech, I mean, I
Mhm.
had a lot of offers too, but I mean, it was something about it. Even when I go back now,
Mhm.
I felt comfortable. I came in with at that time, still now, a great recruiting class.
Mhm.
Some guys that I met at the All-Star game, but that was my journey. For you,
Right.
what was it? What sold you? I know you were familiar with Tech already, but what was it like? Was it the class you were coming in with, or what was it?
It was, I didn't give Tech a chance. I thought, man, I've been going to camp there, for the past 7 years. There's no chance. I was just literally, I took the visit to begin with, just as polite thing for Bonnie and Beth were the assistant coaches, and they were the ones that I was actually Beth Dunkenberger's first ever home visit. And so, yeah, so when I was like, I've been calling all the time. They're great. I need to just at least go. And I didn't think anything of it. I was like, there's no chance. I'll go up for the weekend, whatever. I was pretty sure Clemson was going to be maybe A&M, Tulane was the dark horse. And then I came and just fit. A lot of times I tell people, if it's like when you're shopping for your wedding dress, you're going to go, but you put that one on, and as soon as you put it on, that's it. And that's how it was at Tech. I came up for the weekend, and it was a Halloween weekend, and we had, they had Halloween party. They had us all over at campus doing stuff. And I fit with the team. I had a good vibe with them. I felt like it was family, and it was, the campus sells itself, but just being amongst this group of women and starting to talk about, we weren't very good, and can we, turn this around? What is it you think that, my recruiting class is going to be able to do? And just talking with, with Beth and Bonnie and what their vision was of what they thought we could accomplish. It was home. I mean, I know it's a cliche saying, but by gosh, I left and I'm like, I'm going to school there. Like, I was kind of shaking my head, like, my mom and I wound up making a pros and cons list of my final schools, and we're going through it. And it just was so funny because she wouldn't tell me, where you choose, whatever it is, you've got to make the choice. It's, where you're going to be. And it never occurred to me that I'm choosing a school that's 14-hour car ride from my mom. That it just never, and now with my kids, I'm like, oh, you're not going 14 hours away. There's no chance, but mom just encouraged, and I start making this list, and I'm just looking at it, and I'm like, it was hands down. I couldn't come up with a con besides it was far away from home. That was it. So that's how I wound up here.
And who also was being recruited with you at that time? Because when I got to Tech, when you guys had already started putting that program on the map, where you guys, were winning and we were going to the games. But who take me back to that time? Who came in with you? Who was already there? Just about that.
Right. So my recruiting class, there was 5 of us. It was me, Lisa Leftwich, Angela Donnell, Stephanie Carter, and Christi Osborne. And so, I mean, we were some of the top players to ever come through here once all was said and done. And it was funny because I don't think any of us were like the greatest, but together that, we just did something special. We just clicked. We just knew each other on and off the court. And when we stepped on that court, it just went well. I mean, we just worked well together. Everybody seemed to just vibe, and it just, we got every ounce of talent out of our bodies. I did. Yeah. And then already here we had Dana Sonovic, we had Lisa Griffith, who was a 1,000-point scorer, Phyllis Tonkin, Sue Logston, several just integral players that were just good, and eventually we got the right group in at the right time. And it just, between the coaching staff challenging us and, Mike Gentry in the weight room, once we, we had Christi Osborne, love her heart. She couldn't bench the bar when she came in as a freshman, because nobody lifted. Like, you didn't really, my coach, we lifted in high school. We had one of those universal machines. So, once we get in there and we start working hard, Coach G and Coach Bennett were in the weight room. Like, they started really pushing us because they're like, okay, these girls are committed. Let's get in here. And, and when Coach G, man, when he gets fired up, you're fired up. You don't have, So, no,
I'm getting, I know I got a hoodie when I get chills, man, because you named some phenomenal women. And, Lisa Witherspoon, also like you, a Virginia Tech women's basketball great. She was on her legacy spotlight, and she talked about her visit. And she said, and I'm just paraphrasing here, but I remember talking to her as we prepped for her interview, and even on her legacy spotlight, when she came there, you and Lisa and the rest of the girls, the women you named, were tight, and it was just on and off the court. And she wanted to be a part of that. And she just talked about how you guys had a special bond, and it manifests itself throughout the women's program.
Yes.
And I remember seeing you and Lisa, obviously, Lisa, I'm tight with, and I remember seeing you guys play and also just seeing how y'all were off the court. There was no TikTok back then, and there was no
Right.
Instagram and Facebook. But I gotta believe if we had social media back then, it would have been crazy because y'all had a great time, and we probably would have gotten a little bit of a trouble. But just
Probably.
you know, but talk about the practices. I want to go back. I wasn't there. I was on the football field, but
Right.
it wasn't like y'all were just having fun and it was just like, you mentioned lifting weights and how Gentry and those guys pushed you. But talk about the practices because again, y'all went through it too. Y'all might not have equipment on, but I mean, you
Yeah.
guys, it was practices were competitive, weren't they?
Yeah, well, it's funny because like when you get that workout book for the summertime and you think, oh, I'll go through the workout book. You're not prepared for that first week of being in school. And, God, I was so sore I could barely walk because you come in and we had distance running or sprints or something. And then we went in and scrimmaged for an hour. And then we went down the weight room and lifted. And, it was at least 3 hours a day. And I think we signed a piece of paper telling us that we were only there 20 minutes because the lifting and the scrimmaging were all optional, mandatorily
Yeah,
optional,
yeah,
right?
mandatory option. Exactly.
So, but we had, it was, and we got competitive. Like some people never could get it. Like Lisa Leftwich and I, when we were in the back gym, we were scrimmaging and we were on opposite teams. And I was keeping score, someone else was keeping score. I don't know. We got all mixed up and the numbers were wrong. And, Lisa and I are face to face, nose to nose, screaming at each other like,
Mhm.
you're wrong. We're going back and forth and just almost ready to come to blows, and then like coach walks in and is like, hey, it's time to go lift. And we go down the weight room and go to the bench press. And Lily's like, hey, man, you want to spot me? I'm like, yeah, girl, I got you. So we go right to the bench and start lifting. And other girls are looking at us like, you guys were about to fight on the court. Now you're right here. I said, that's on the court. It's just competitive. Like it wasn't personal and neither one of us took it personal. We just realized we're like, no, that's how we get better. If you're going to be that competitive with each other, then that's what's going to make this team great.
Mhm.
And then you leave it. And so I think that in one aspect, we were more like guys from that standpoint and that we could just get after it and be
Yep.
pissed at each other at practice. And then 5 minutes later, go out and, either spot you at the bench press or go, grab a sandwich at McAdoo's and everything was fine.
No doubt.
And the coaches. And so practices, once we got in the gym, it's just, they're so specific. And I'm sure you guys are the same way. It's so scripted and they have it every 5 minutes. There's a clock up there and you're doing this drill and it just goes and goes and goes. And it's very methodical and it pushed. I mean, you have just exhausted at times. There are times when thank God I wasn't the diamond press. I wasn't Angela Donnell having to guard the ball. Lisa Griffith and I just got to jog back to the other end of the court and
Mhm.
stand there, the bigs didn't have to do much, and just catch our breath. But it was once, freshman year was tough because we were not good. And I think my entire recruiting class probably struggled because we wound up finishing 10-18. And I don't think any of us had come from a team that had lost more than 1 or 2 games your entire high school
Mhm.
career. So
Mhm.
to only win 10 was like just a sucker punch. Like we're like, maybe did we make the right choice? And, I remember, and we're working hard and the team that was there everybody's working hard. It just, nothing was clicking for us. And then I remember, the 5 of us wound up walking around campus, my whole recruiting class. And we went, I don't know, a couple hours, just us, just walking around like, okay, what are we going to do? There was talk of transfer. There was talk of, bailing on it. It just wasn't what we thought. And then we were like, no, you know what? No, we're not bailing on this. This is not one of those things. Yeah, there's adversity. Yeah, it didn't go like we thought. We just got our butts handed to us on and we were getting killed in games. We weren't even, and so we were like, no, we're doing this. And so with the 5 of us literally walked around campus and came to a group decision of we're all in, we're doing this. And what are we going to do to get better? How can we get better? And it started with convincing them for us to be able to stay and come to summer school. That wasn't a given at the time. The basketball team didn't have a lot of money. And so we got to
Hold
stay.
on, Jenny. That wasn't. I didn't know that. So
Mhm, mhm.
y'all had to kind of request that. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
we had to ask to stay.
I didn't know that.
And I got to stay because I lived with my dad and they didn't have to pay room and board. They just had to pay for classes. So yeah, we didn't get sweatsuits our freshman year. Freshman year, they went to Walmart and bought sweatsuits, little the windsuits, and they had somebody embroider Virginia Tech women's basketball on it.
Man, oh
And
man.
we could buy it after the season for $50. But other than that, we had to turn it in. So, and then Coach Beamer came along sophomore year. I think that was, let's see, football was 3-8-1. So that was
Wait,
sophomore
one,
year
yeah.
was the Independence Bowl, right? So they started winning,
Mm-hmm.
and there was some Nike money. And next thing you know, Coach Beamer siphoned off some of the football money, gave it to women's basketball. And next thing you know, we had, sweatsuits and sweatshirts and hoodies and shoes and more shoes, and so once that it just kind of snowballed for us. And then, like I said, the five of us had that talk, and once we committed, we were like, all right, let's do this. And it just took off. I mean, we just kept pushing, kept challenging each other, kept working harder, hoping that. And from the recruiting standpoint, I know we've had this conversation before. My hope was that they are always going to recruit better than me, right? Because the only way this
Yeah.
program gets better is if better than me comes in.
Mm-hmm.
But you better be willing to work hard, because one thing I wasn't going to give up was my starting spot. And I'm a competitive son of a gun and a hard worker. So you might be better, but you're not going to outwork me. And, it's like I said, it's just every year come in. Okay, someone better needs to come in here. Cynthia Lee came in. Love her heart. She was 6'4", just solid muscle, and could jump out the gym and should have taken my spot. But I'm like, you're not getting it. I will outwork you every single day of the week and not give up my spot. So,
no doubt. I do want to ask you about this right hand story.
okay.
What? Because that kind of I take notes when people I'm interviewing.
Yeah.
What was that about? I don't know anything about this.
Yeah. So obviously I'm a lefty, and I was watching film of Bonnie Hendrickson, and she was like, you can't go right. And I'm like, I can go right. She's looking at the film. Everything was, I was turning over my right shoulder. I was going left. And she goes, you can't go right. And I was like, okay, I can't go right. I'll show you. So I was a career 58% from the floor shooter. And I had a 3-game stretch where I went right every single time. I'd caught the ball. It might have been wide open for me to shoot a left-handed layup. Nope. I turned over the left shoulder so I could use my right hand. Wound up shooting about 25-30% for those 3 games. And Bonnie calls me in her office. She's like, what's going on? She goes, are you okay? I'm like, everything's fine. She's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm going right. And she puts another play up, and she goes, what's this? I'm like, that's me going right. What's this? Why didn't you shoot? That's me going. You said I can't go right. The film shows right there. I can go right. And so she's like, oh my God, you stubborn thing. She's like,
Were you being petty? Were you being petty?
I was proving a point. Yes, very petty. And she's like, if I admit you can go right, will you just stop? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So she's like, okay. She's like, I'll put it on, record it. You can go right. Now please stop.
No doubt. Well, and shout out to Bonnie, great coach. I want you to talk a little bit though, Jenny, about some great games. I remember Lisa Leftwich was talking about when you guys played UNC and she was guarding Marion Jones.
Mm-hmm.
And Marion Jones was younger than her. And Lisa said she got pissed off during the game because Lisa made a move on her and scored. And Marion Jones came back and was like, nice shot, rookie, or something. Like Lisa was like, I'm older than you, or whatever. But
Right.
women's basketball at VT has come a long way. And your class specifically, you guys, ladies, excuse me, were part of, bringing that to the forefront. But I know when I get with JC and Cornell, we always talk about how special that 95 season was and what that did for Virginia Tech football. But for you and your legacy, what were some games or some matchups or a season that when you look back, you say, this was that year for you and your teammates?
Yeah, I would it's funny, my freshman year when we were terrible, and we got UVA game. My whole goal in the UVA game was to knock down one of the Burge twins. They had Heather and Heidi Burge. They were the
I
6'7",
remember. I
and
remember
yeah, I'm
him.
trying to guard that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And wasn't
So
Don on that team? Don?
yeah,
Don
yeah,
Staley? Don Staley
she was
was
all
on?
right.
Yeah.
She was all right. I did. It's funny. I literally, one of the girls comes down the court, and I mean, I just chucked her. Just, we were probably down 40 at this point already. So, it wasn't like it was anything, but I'm like, well, let's check that goal off. Um, I would say probably my entire junior year, because that's when it started clicking. Sophomore year, we got the 20 wins, first time in program history, and we did not make anything postseason. The NIT had maybe 16 teams back then, maybe less. That could be a bold-faced lie. It wasn't the 32, then the 64 they have now. And then we did not even get a sniff at the NCAAs, and we were thinking, man, we should have gotten something, at 20 wins. But junior year, it just seemed to click, and we were going into games. Our confidence was sky high, and was that Lisa Leftwich's finger roll against Southern Miss? Might have been. That's the big joke was, one thing Lily can do is finger roll. Yeah. So I do remember her, scoring that, and it was, I think that was the year too. So Tennessee, playing them, and that might have been my senior year. I got an offensive rebound, and Vonda Ward was guarding me, and she was pissed. And so she just came down and just like leveled me, and had panther claws, and just scratched the living heck out of my arm. And I wound up throwing my hand over top of where she scratched me. And I go to shoot free throws, and I pull my hand off, and it's covered in blood. It's just dripping down my arm. They couldn't get it to stop. And so I didn't get to shoot free throws, and wound up having to not be able to go back in the game, because I think I needed stitches on where she got me. But that was the one game I didn't score double figures my entire senior year. I got stuck at 9 because I couldn't go back in and couldn't shoot my free throws. I'm like, good old Vonda Ward. I'm like, man, really? It's a nice little scar.
Yeah.
Little prize. And then, one that sticks out, and this one is just kind of a funny story. We played at UT Chattanooga, and we were killing them. And it was, Anita Overcast was her name. Not going to call anybody out. She probably doesn't remember it, but Lord, I do. So she shot the ball, and I blocked it, and it just kind of went straight up in the air. So you see me turn around to try to find the ball. And then you see her come from behind and just nail me in the side of the face. I crumple to the ground. I mean, I'm knocked out cold. And in the film, and the coaches played this over and over and over for everybody, you hear, "Oh my God, my baby." And my mom running down the bleachers onto the court. And I'm like, "Oh my God." I was like, "Mom, 22-year-old, grown woman, what are we doing here?"
No
So yeah, I
doubt.
got knocked out cold. I was swollen shut before I came off the court, and it was a mess. So
Yo, eyes swollen shut, broken nose in high
yeah,
school, Vonnie Ward
physical.
scratching you, bleeding to death. Yo, that's crazy, man. Like, yeah, it's physical. You know what
Yeah,
I'm
it's
saying?
contact
Like,
sport for sure.
it is. No, it is, and this is why I love these, and this is why I enjoy it, because I didn't know any of this. I didn't know about you getting scratched by Vonnie Ward. I do want to ask you real quick, when you said you, I remember, and I wanted you to bring it up, not me. When you guys played Tennessee,
Mhm.
how was that? If like, it's funny because you saw Pat Summit, you and I
Yeah,
both, idolize and respect her immensely. God
right.
rest her soul, the great Pat Summit. And then now all of a sudden you're at a program which you helped building, and y'all are
Mhm.
playing Tennessee. Did you ever look over here at a timeout and say, "Wow, you were locked in. You just locked in." You know.
During the game, locked in. Like beforehand at warmups and stuff, you're kind of like, is she watching me? What was her scouting report? What did she say to her team about? That's, you kind of goes through your head like that, thinking like, I'd love to see what she had said. But the biggest thing with Tennessee was, you start out, and I'm 6'3", and I'm going against 6'4", 6'5" at the opening tip. And then when she gets tired in 4 minutes of the game, then another 6'4" comes in. And then when she goes out, 6'5" comes in. And then I'm still out there the whole time, and they just a steady stream of just big bodies that just constantly come in and just bang, and physical as all get out. And, their depth, I think, was the biggest difference of what we were trying to get to. And we're on our way to, but hadn't gotten there yet, was just the constant. And Lisa and them going against the very, very physical point guards, constantly pushing, shoving, hand checking when we could back in the day. And they come out of the game and someone as big as them, if not bigger, comes back in, and Lisa's like, "Oh girl, I'm out here 36 minutes and they're killing me." So
Yeah, no, I know it was rough, and a lot of people don't realize women's basketball is just as physical as men. Many cases, it's actually more physical, but that's for a different legacy spotlight. Jenny, I do want to bring this up. You are a Virginia Tech Sports Hall of Fame inductee, which is a huge honor. As I mentioned, you were the first ever Virginia Tech women's basketball All-Met Player of the Year, whatever. At the time when you were done playing, you were second in everything: sports, points, rebounds, and everything. When that hit you, when you were inducted into in the Virginia Tech Sports Hall of Fame, I mean, what kind of feelings did you go through, or thoughts? Because here you are, we talked about it in the beginning of this legacy spotlight. You're going through your growing pains that all athletes go through. Your mom, the recruitment process, going against Roy Jones Jr. and other people, broken nose, all the different things you go. That's part of the journey, the good, the bad, the life lessons. And all of a sudden you wake up and you're in Hall of Famer and you're one of the greats, which can never be taken from you. And I saw you play. Your teammates play with you, hold you in high regard. Coaches do. I had Lisa Witherspoon on. She's a Hall of Famer. She talked about you. You're one of the GOATs.
yeah.
We take a moment, right now and just reflect on that.
Yeah. It validated every choice I made, all the work I put in, all the countless hours that people don't see that you're in there by yourself. I mean, the toss back in the back gym was my best friend. There was no day off. And I would go in and see the coaches and be like, what is it? What did you see last night that I need to do better? And they would give me 3 or 4 things. And now down I go into the back gym and, toss back and start working on different post moves, different this, different that. So I think just being validated that, that people do realize everything you put in and how much effort it took, and how much time, there's a lot of things you can't do because you are committed to being the best you can be at your sport. And it's, it's one of those things you don't think about it until you start reflecting on it and realize how dadgum cool it is, and how special
Really
it
cool.
is. And just, my one complaint would be my little plaque. I have these giant Bert and Ernie eyebrows and just, I'm like, come on, man, can we not have a better picture than that? Oh gosh.
The Burton Ernie's. I do want to ask you about the current team. Coach Kenny Brooks has got that program
Yes.
building. They're undefeated in ACC play right now. I love women's basketball, and I think he's doing a phenomenal job. But you are the Virginia Tech Women's Ambassador of Sports. You are someone that can speak on it. You were there. You laid the bricks down. You and Lisa and the rest of your teammates. Do you get a chance to go by, check them out? Because now that you're back in Blacksburg,
Oh,
have
yeah.
you been to a game? Have you been around a practice, or you kind of just stand back and let them do their thing?
Yeah. No, we've been to a lot. We go to every practice, or not every practice, every game. So we've got our season tickets. We go to the games, and it's funny because when all the football stuff went down this year, the day after, maybe 2 days after, JC got named interim head coach, we're at a women's basketball game. And somebody said, "Oh, look at that. The head coach is here." And JC is like, "We were going to be here, whether I was a D-line coach or the head coach or whatever." I'm like, "This is what we do." He was like, "Gosh, y'all don't know us very well at all with that one." Yeah, we go to everything. We've been to practices. Coach Brooks, Kenny is, I think, a phenomenal coach, a phenomenal teacher. Watching how he breaks the game down. And, we went this summer because my youngest is a good basketball player, and she's hoping to, play at the next level once she gets a little older. But Kenny let us come into practice and we were watching their summer workouts. And the biggest thing that stood out to me was, so Georgia Amore was working on, she was just driving the lane and doing this, firing a sideways jump past the corner for a 3. So of her hour workout, 40 minutes of it was spent on dribbling in 3 dribbles and throwing this pass. And if she didn't catch the ball from the coach, clean, flush, perfect, it went back and they started over. Nobody yelled. There wasn't in your face, just like, I can't believe you bumbled the pass. It was, if she didn't catch it clean, reset, and they'd go back and she would just, and keep going until it was all perfect. And then there's working on the pass and little critiques here and there. And then she finished off her workout with a shooting drill. And she had, it was 3-point shots, and she just had to, you couldn't miss a certain number in a row, or you reset and had to start back over. It was 5 spots around the arc. And she just, it was, hey, you want to take a break? No, I got it. Next thing you know, boom, she just knocked them all off and went through and just was, very humble about it. Like, no, I'm working hard. This is how, so I like that. I like their passion, Poppy. He's a fiery guy and a good coach. So I think the whole staff, Coach Hicks, Rad, I could, name them and give you a whole rundown of all of them. I like the way they are together. And I like how they teach the game, and seeing Kenny in there. I've wanted him to be the coach here. We knew him at JMU when JC was coaching there. Kenny was the women's coach there. I'm sure he probably hated me because we'd go to the games, but on the Tech versus JMU games, we always sat behind the Tech bench with our Tech gear on. And I'm like, I sure hope I'm not getting my husband fired, because, JMU is paying the bills, but I'm cheering for Tech women's basketball no matter what.
No doubt. Well, I get it. And speaking of JC, this has been a crazy year for him. This is your legacy spotlight, but I do want to take a minute or two just to talk about, just, you already know, it's been well documented. Everyone knows how I feel about your husband as far as, as big bruh. I've called him one of the best leaders I've ever known. And I've been on numerous radio shows and podcasts, and I stand by that. And he's proven me right, which I love. But I was very happy and somewhat emotional when I saw him light the stogie after they beat UVA, but even more ecstatic when I heard he was being retained by Coach Pry. When you see, because when you're married, I've been married 20 plus years, been with my wife 24.
Mm-hmm.
When you're married, you see the highs, the lows, the concerns, the doubts. Are we going to be able to stay here? You're there behind the scenes. You guys have been through a lot together, and this is why you guys are kind of like a Hokie power couple. But with all seriousness, just seeing this opportunity come to fruition, and him being able to stay as the D-line and associate head coach, and him help keep a recruiting class together, help keep the season as far as extending the not just streak against UVA, but beating them and getting to a bowl game. Just being there by his side, how does that make you feel?
I'm so proud of him. It's cliche to say, but he has worked his butt off for 20 years coaching. And, it took us 17 years to get back here. And so, for the way things happened, and I know JC said it many times, it's like, it was, wish it had been done differently. Wish we could have, feel bad for, how things went down, but it was, the craziest part. So JC's probably said it, but he went to work, they would do early mornings here. And so that Tuesday he goes to work, and at 6:15, I get a text message saying, just got called up to Whit Babcock's office. And I'm like, oh dear God, like, are we fired? Like my first thought was either we're fired, or maybe if the staff is fired, we're going to get a 1-year extension so that we're here to help, the new staff. Mm-hmm. And he calls about 10 minutes later and is like, I just got named interim head coach. And my first response was, get the out of here. I was like, come on, man. I was like, this is a random. I was like, come on, man. And he's like, no. And so we're like, just was like, oh my gosh, just so excited and just, just so happy and proud. And then it was just, he just wanted to do right by this team more than anything. He wanted them to understand his passion for this school, for this program, for this sport. And just, leave a legacy with them of this is what it is. This is what Virginia Tech means to me. And I hope I can, give that little bit of that to you all in the interim that he had the position.
I will never get tired of giving him shout outs and praise.
Mhm.
Just one of my favorite people players. I'm glad I don't have to block him anymore. But and then on top of it, man, to come in under such, it's actually crazy because I saw him become that heroic figure with him and the rest of my teammates, Jim Barron and Cornell Brown and Hank Coleman and those guys, doing an
Mhm.
adverse situation in '95 where we were 0-2
Yeah.
and we were getting ready to lose the season. Then you see him in the same situation 20
Mhm.
something years later where Virginia Tech sports, Coach Fuente had gotten let go and all this stuff was going on. And he sat there and rallied the troops and they had a tough loss against Miami and then they beat UVA. And
Mhm.
I'm just happy he's back in Blacksburg. I'm happy you both are doing well. A few more questions. Speaking of you and him, you guys have a family.
Mhm.
Years ago we were running around the drill field and going to practices and McAdoo's and hanging out and causing ruckus, Fox Ridge, Terrace View, Main Street. You know what I'm saying? Now you guys are parents, and now y'all have daughters who are athletes, beautiful daughters, and you're married, and just offer some perspective of how it is for you being a mother and what challenges or what joy you take in that.
Right. Man, it's hard because it's, you've got to let them be their own people and let them fail and let them, have some struggles and some adversity. And you have to learn you can't fix everything. So we have Maddie is our senior in high school,
Mhm.
and Riley is our freshman. So those are our two girls. And Maddie was a volleyball player all through high school. Her middle school basketball coach ruined her. So she
You
retired.
had coached her. I thought you had coached her.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
coached her. Yeah, so she retired after middle school and just did volleyball and did quite well and loved it, but wasn't interested in trying to play in college. Just wanted to, she wants to go to after being here and being at football games this year. She realized she wants to go to a school with a big football program because she enjoyed it.
Oh, the same way
Mhm.
with my oldest. My oldest, Sydney, she played volleyball since she was 8 years old, played on the club, travel, enjoyed it.
Mhm.
But she's done now, applying to colleges. Tech is one of her choices. She's
Mhm.
waiting to hear back. And she just wants to go to a school that has a football program
Mhm. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
and it's that indirect attachment they get without even realize how much they love, especially
Right.
being a coach's daughter and
Yeah.
being around it. Yeah.
And they
So
realize too, it's cool because it's this lifestyle they lead is not like nobody else, not nobody else, but obviously it's a different lifestyle than anybody
yeah.
else's, their friends, because it is, you are around the players all the time. You are part of something special. You are in the facility. You can go to the players lounge. We've been over there at the players lounge when they're out of town playing Papa Shot, just staying competitive within the family. And then you got Riley, our freshman, who she's having, and this is where our struggle has been. So she hurt her hip at volleyball this year. So here she is, her freshman year, trying to make a name for herself. And she has played 0 minutes of basketball, zero shots, zero turnovers. So that's good. But she's got to have surgery. So she will miss her entire freshman year to have hip surgery. And she has a torn labrum and a hip impingement. So she will get that fixed, hopefully, and miss AAU ball this year, but get healthy and be ready to go next year. But that's the hard part as a parent is like, you have to wait for insurance. You have to wait for the doctors. You have to wait and try to keep your kid positive and, still stay focused, even though they consider, and probably us too, a big part of their life is sports, and that's taken away. How are we going to respond to that? What can we do? How can we, what else can we do? What can we be involved in? What can we have her doing that's going to, find joy in something. So
Mhm. Do they realize how great you and JC were? Because kids sometimes to their parents, as their parents, do they
mhm.
know like, yo, my mom she was really that good. Like my dad is a Hokie legend. Like y'all are both Hokie goats.
Right. I think you put that video together, didn't you? Was that the one of
Oh
JC?
no, 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 no.
Who did
Everyone gives
that?
me credit. I wish I
Okay.
did. But
Okay.
I put it out there
Okay.
that early morning and it just blew up. It was
Yeah.
just it's highlights.
I
Yeah.
think I think them seeing their dad, that video, And it was eye-opening for a bunch of our friends too. We're just like, I mean, people, they know you're good, but then when they actually see it and some of the plays he made and just how dominant he truly was. I mean, 100 tackles as a defensive lineman in one
Yeah, and
season. Come
yeah,
on, man.
and pick sixes.
Yeah. And with a little, yeah, little. Oh gosh. So yeah, I think they do realize, and being here and they hear it a lot more, because it's not like, obviously we have our tech memorabilia up, and JC retired my jersey for me. So I was like, I appreciate that. He's got that framed and hanging up, and we've got a collage that I made him a collage his senior year. Huge old thing of all the clippings and stuff from the different magazines. And then everybody kept talking about his, and I was like, oh, hey, I played too. So I made mine, but it took all 4 years of clippings from women's basketball to, equate the 1 year of football. But it's, so those are hanging up in the house. So yeah, I think they get it, but I think it's definitely kind of more brought home now that we're back here in Blacksburg.
Yeah. Well, this is the part of the show, Jenny, where we end the show with I allow my guests to give some perspective. You are blessed with a beautiful family. You've been through challenges just like the next woman and man, next person, as far as adversity, but you've overcome it. I want you just to offer some insight based on your journey so far in life, all the life lessons you learned from sports, from motherhood so far, and just being a coach's wife or coach yourself. I want you to talk to the young women out here specifically, or anybody. Just what have you learned so far about how to get to your destination and your goals, and what advice and feedback do you have? And what I mean is, just speak freely on your perspective on what it means to fight through and how to be successful. Just to end it.
Yeah. Well, I would say it's just a passion. Find your passion for something, whatever it may be. We've told our girls that all along. It doesn't have to be sports. If it's piano, if it's, writing poetry, if it's something, if you're passionate about it, then it's never work to do it. And so, we've preached that to our girls. And then you just got to, I'm stealing a phrase from somebody else, choose joy. Just everything, it's so much happens in life, and there's going to be adversity, and you're going to lose close friends. People are going to pass away. You're going to lose your family members. But at some point, you've just got to choose joy and find a way to make everything positive. And I know that sounds so cliche, but you just can't live your life being negative. And you can use some negative experiences to help better yourself and to help be the best version of you that you can be. And I think that's what we try to do here. I know JC and I both, it's just every day, let's make it a positive, do something positive, impact somebody, in a positive way, some way, shape or form today. That it could be simple. It could be, letting somebody cross in front of you on the crosswalk. Somebody could be having a terrible day, and you just say, hey, how we doing? Good to see you, or something. Just one small comment could make all the difference. So, we try to do that every day, at least do something positive somehow, some way. And then I would say, as far as any athlete out there, don't specialize. Don't just play one sport. I think you need to play as many sports as possible. I think you need to enjoy every sport you play, enjoy your teammates, enjoy your time with them. And then if you want it, work at it. It won't be handed to you. You being on TikTok for 4 hours every day instead of going out and having a ball in your hand, going to your backyard and shooting, calling a friend up and say, hey, let's meet at the gym. And, you rebound for me, I'll rebound for you. You've got to, it's the work ethic has to come in play. You've got to work, and you've got to be competitive. And I think that's what stands out most for Division I athletes in my mind, is that their work ethic and their competitiveness is what you see, in addition to being talented. But that's what really drives, I think, the athletes. So
Man, no, I couldn't say it better myself, man. And thank you again for jumping on. Those are wise words from a wise woman. Virginia Tech Sports Hall of Fame inductee Jenny Rue Price joins the Vicktory Life Legacy Spotlight for a great interview. And I appreciate you and your family being part of the Vicktory Life movement.
Absolutely. Hey, listen, thank you for everything you do. You don't just do football. You don't just do guys sports. I love the fact that it's women of all types, athletes, professionals, coaches, a lot of different ways to show women and young girls out there that there's, how to be mentored, how to be successful. So thank you for what you do. It's noticed and appreciated.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you so much. I'm glad we were able to get you on, and I'm glad that you are seeing what I'm doing. And to all the people that support Victory Life and the Price family, thank you for tuning in. Please remember to subscribe to our Victory Life YouTube channel for great interviews with great people like Miss Jenny Ruth Price here. Also, make sure you check us out on Facebook at Victory Life. It's on Facebook, and we have our IG account and Twitter. So we're everywhere. And again, please support the Price family. They're some great people, and make sure, like I say every episode, no matter where you go, no matter what you do, make sure you have a positive impact and you leave a great legacy. Thank you, Jenny. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Dwight. Appreciate it, man. That was fun.